everybody, I'm Tim Ward and welcome back to Garden Sense. Well, it's April 15th, so happy tax day everyone. Hopefully you guys have all gotten your taxes in by now. I know I have. Never a fun time of year, but hey, it is what it is. So speaking of sending stuff in, I have had dozens and dozens of emails from you as the weather has really started to warm up here. So we actually selected 3 questions for this week's video podcast. So buckle up everybody and let's jump right in. The first question is from Bill. Hi Tim, I have a big onion problem in my backyard. How do I handle that issue? Is now the time to treat the yard? All right, so the good news is wild onions are very, very common and they're relatively easy to kill. The issue is you really have to dig up the bulbs after the fact. So in terms of a product, look, we would recommend Image. It's a great weed killer. You can find it over at rosensonline.com. I actually think we might be out of it at the moment. But again, I know we have more coming in. It should be in here really, really soon. But frankly, there are a bunch of weed killers out there that will take care of wild onions. The problem is a lot of people don't realize that depending on how mature those onions are, you may actually have to go and dig up the bulb. So if you want to go ahead and spray now to kill them and just kind of see how things shake out, you can certainly do that with a product like Image. However, the best way, frankly, to get rid of them is to make sure that you dig down and actually get the onion bulb. Again, they're onions, they are edible. So again, if you don't use enough of the product or if it's a little bit more of a mature onion plant, using even something as strong as Image may not completely kill it. It could actually come back next year a little bit. So again, it's entirely up to you how you would handle it. If it were me and I had a bunch of onions, I would actually try to kill it first with the Image all-in-one. Then I would just kind of see how things shake out, and I may actually then go in and dig it out. The next question is from Jerry. Hi Tim, I just received 2 bags of the Turf Trust Crabgrass Preventer with Dimension. What setting should I use on my earth waste spreader when applying the product here in Mount Laurel, New Jersey? Okay, this is a really good question, Jerry, and I'll be honest, guys, I had 4 separate emails related to this specific question, not just for Dimension, but for Gallery as well as for the Turf Trust Fertilizers. Now, let me just point something out real quickly to you, folks. Every year, new spreaders come out, and we do not track what these new spreaders are, who manufactures them, what changes are being made. So we actually don't know, frankly, when you think about the dozens and dozens of spreaders on the market right now, I don't have settings for each of them. What I do know is that when it comes to Turf Trust products, it's actually pretty easy to figure out. So you mentioned Dimension in your email, Jerry, and so for Dimension, what you want to do is measure the flow gate opening and adjust the settings on that spreader so that that flow gate opens 1/4 of an inch. In terms of fertilizer, Turf Trust Fertilizers, you want to make sure that flow gate opening is 5/16 of an inch, and for Gallery you can actually set that to 3/8 of an inch. So after you adjust it for each one of those products, just write down somewhere where you will actually remember it, and that's what you can set it to for those specific products going forward. And what's cool about that is that's going to be pretty much universal for any spreader that you are going to use. So if you get rid of the one you're currently using and you pick up a new one, there's no need to email me and say, hey, I just picked up this manufacturer spreader, what's the setting? I'm going to tell you the exact same thing. If it's Dimension, it's 1/4 inch. If it's Turf Trust Fertilizers, it's going to be 5/16. And if it's Gallery, it's going to be 3/8 of an inch. A real quick way to do this, guys, is to actually use drill bits. Get a 3/8 inch drill bit, drop it down into the spreader, and start adjusting that dial till the flow gate opens up enough when you squeeze it that drill bit is going to just get stuck or just barely pass through. Then it's adjusted to the right height, and just record it. Again, somewhere you're going to remember so you don't have to email me this question next year. So one more time, Dimension is 1/4 inch. Turf Trust Fertilizers is 5/16 of an inch, and Gallery is 3/8 of an inch. The last question for today is from Neil. Tim, I was wondering if Turf Trust can be used as an alternative to Plant Trust. I will soon be planting a number of green giant arborvitae and a Douglas fir in our backyard. Can Turf Trust be used as a fertilizer for these evergreens? Okay, really good question. Obviously, Plant Trust would be ideal in this situation. But remember that when it comes to fertilizers, you want to just use something that's going to be close in terms of the NPK values of Plant Trust. And frankly, the closest product is going to be Turf Trust Fertilizers. And to be even more specific, the Turf Trust Professional Starter formula is going to be the closest fertilizer out there relative to Plant Trust. So absolutely, you can go ahead and use that. Again, Turf Trust is a 24-212 fertilizer, and Plant Trust is a 21-512 fertilizer. So you're getting a little bit more nitrogen, a little bit less phosphorus, and the same amount of potassium. So again, it's very, very close. So go ahead and spread it the same way that you would put down Plant Trust. Both of them are slow release fertilizers, so there's not going to be any risk to any of the plants that you mentioned in your email. Now, because you're planting, I also want to remind you that you should be putting down Kickstart early and often into that planting. So as soon as you get it in the ground, water the entire plant, or all of the plants rather, with Kickstart. And I would actually do this once a week for the next 4 to 6 weeks to really help strengthen that root system. What's great is as it's strengthening the root system, that root system is then going to start taking in more of the nutrition that Turf Trust is going to be providing to the soil around those trees. So go ahead and put down some Turf Trust, then make sure you're using Kickstart, once a week for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks. And then from that point, it's always good to use, Kickstart once a month on your lawns, on your plants, trees, shrubs, whatever. It's a great way to make sure that you're keeping your plants' root systems really healthy. All right, everybody, just a couple final thoughts before we wrap up this week's video podcast. Folks, you got to make sure that you're putting down Turf Trust fertilizers right now if you haven't already done it. Your lawn is craving to be fed, especially as it's getting a little bit more rainy. Things are really warming up, so giving it Turf Trust fertilizers right now is a great way to keep your lawn looking healthy, and obviously, they're available over at rosensonline.com. Now, this is also the time of year where you need to be putting down Dimension if you haven't already done so. Early April, really through the entire month of April, is a great time to use Dimension in terms of trying to prevent crabgrass. Now, we do recommend you put down Dimension twice a year. So one would be now, and then again, you could put it down again in the late summer, early fall, unless of course you're overseeding, in which case you do not want to use Dimension in the fall. But folks, head over to rosensonline.com right now and make sure you pick up some Dimension if you haven't already put it down. Get it on your lawn. It's going to help prevent some of the broadleaf weeds. There's a bunch that are listed on the bag, but its primary function are going to be those grassy weeds like crabgrass. So make sure you get it down right now. Finally, guys, I know I already talked about it a little bit in the last question, but Kickstart. You got to make sure you're using Kickstart on your trees, on your plants, your shrubs, and obviously on your lawn. Folks, there's no reason not to use it. It's a natural product. It's going to really fortify the root system of any plant that it touches, frankly. You can use it as a foliar spray. You can use it as a soil drench, whatever is easiest. You can obviously use it on your indoor plants as well. So head over to rosensonline.com. And you can order it by the case if you need a lot of it, or just pick up a couple of bottles. But it is the most versatile product that we offer, and that's probably why we sell so much of it. Folks, I also want to remind you, send your emails with all the questions to tim@rosensonline.com. Give me a couple of days to get back to you, but I as always, I promise that if I receive it, I'm going to respond to it. Now, obviously, those of you who are watching this video podcast know where to send those emails based on the sheer volume that I get each and every week, but go ahead, keep them coming. We love to see them, and obviously, they help us create this video podcast each and every week. Folks, thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today. I hope that your tax day is a good day. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of the week. God bless.